Welcome to CNET 140. This is Chapter 5 of the NDG Introduction to Linux course, File Manipulation. So we're going to start out here with the ls command. You should all be a little bit familiar with this. It's pretty necessary for navigating. The first thing we're going to look at is the use of wildcards. Even though we haven't really gone over that, you'll notice that with this star, we put in a variable that allows us to pick out files that have sh in their name. And in this case, it's allowing us to distribute or to display all of the available shells. So we talked about shells last week, so I thought I'd start out with that. In this case, you can see that there's 4 options for shells. And if you recall, the bash shell was the one that we use by default. So another incantation that we can use is with the timestamps. And we can combine options, at least the short options. And in this case, we're just going to look at the logs file. And you'll notice that with this T, it allows us to sort based on the timestamp, and the R puts it in reverse direction so that we're looking at the oldest first to the newest file. The L just gives us the long format. And if we look at what output we get from the long format, it's standard. So the first character here is always the file type. So there's various file types, but the main ones are the D and the slash. So the D stands for directory, and the slash just means that it's a regular file. The rest of these characters that precede the number here are permissions. The permissions are typically read, write, and execute, and there's 3 sets of 3. So the first set being the owner, and then the next one being the permissions for the group, and the one after that is permissions for everybody else. So if you're the owner, you don't get the highest level permissions, you just get the ones in the owner. And if you're in the group, you don't get the highest level permissions, you just get the permissions that are assigned to the group. And then if you're neither of those people, then you always get this last group here, which is usually has the least permissions. That's consistent with this particular directory. This next one right here is the hard link number. Hard links are alternate locations to access the same file. So we'll go over those in a later chapter. But right now, just know that's the hard link number. The first word here is the username or the user owner, and then the next one is the group owner. So you'll notice here that root owns most of these log files, but the group changes. So the next one over here is the size. We can change that into something that's a little bit more user-friendly if we, say, put in the H, tack that on there. Now we get a human-readable version of that number. It's a little bit easier to interpret which file's the largest. Next one is the timestamp. There's ways that we can manipulate the timestamp. We'll see with the touch command. But right now, the timestamp is just the last time this file was modified. And the last, but not least, is the file name. So one other thing that we can do here before we move on to the next one is there's sometimes some special permissions that aren't read, write, and execute. And if we look at the password file, we'll notice that there's an S in here. and that's a special permission. It's the sticky bit. We'll find that with the sticky bit set, you're restricted in who can remove files. You have to be the owner of the file in order to remove it. So that's the ls command. If we wanted to look at one other type of file, we can look at symbolic link. This might not be right. Yeah. So, well, this gives us the links that we want. So if we go to this far left here, you'll see that in this case, the file type is L, and that means that it's a soft link. You notice that the hard link count is 1. And it's also apparent over here in the file name. It'll always have this little arrow pointing to the directory that it's referencing. All right. So moving on, the file command. File command tells us what type file we're looking at. If this is right, the relative path name to home.txt. You'll see that this file here that we have in the test directory, which is relative to our home directory, you notice that didn't have the leading slash. That makes this a relative path name. And we can also look at another type of file in the binary. You'll notice here that a lot more verbiage, but we can tell just by looking at it that it's not a text file. So if you're doing text manipulation, this would be a bad file to do it on. Also, if you did something like cat, remember the cat command from last time, that this could potentially mess up your or lock up your system if you're trying to display the contents in a text format. And for that reason, we had that the octal dump command. Touch. So typically, we're going to use the touch command to create new files. You can also so if we do ls first, so we can make sure that the new file isn't there. We do touch new file. We create a file, and that's useful. We can also use other commands that'll create files of a certain size, but this is a quick way to create a file. So the cp command. The main thing to remember about the copy command here is that the first one is a source. So we're just going to pick a file, and we're going to save it to our home directory. That's what the tilde is. And now if we look, you can see here that we also have this services file stuck in there. There's also a recursive option here. If we wanted to copy entire directories, we'll find that the move command is automatically recursive if you're moving a directory. So clear that. So the move command, I don't know. Let's go to the test directory and see what's in there. There's this file called red.txt. So if we want to move that, say, up one directory, we could go mv red.txt and put in that